this video, we're going to cover everything you need to know about barn owl nest boxes. And nest boxes are a great way to provide a safe and secure nest site for barn owls in an area that's suitable and where they can thrive. The good thing about barn owl nest boxes is that they're designed specifically for barn owls to meet their nesting requirements. So often case they're actually more suitable than existing nest sites or natural nest sites. And if we think, there are many buildings, and particularly farm buildings, scattered throughout the Irish countryside that in their current state they're not suitable for barn owls. There isn't any nesting opportunities in them, but we can easily change that. By providing a nest box, we can make that building suitable for barn owls. And providing a nest box, it's relatively simple and straightforward, and it can be done as part of an agri-environment scheme, as part of a local community conservation project, or even just as an individual. If you have suitable habitat and good area to put up a nest box, then you can do that to help encourage barn owls. Next is choosing the right nest box for the right location. And we'll go through all of this information and more. And if you're looking for very specific information, you can go to the timestamp.
Ideally, we'd recommend that you install a nest box within an interior space. So if you have a quiet barn or a quiet shed, that would be the ideal location. You can also install nest boxes within busier spaces, busier barns, busier sheds. But if you have neither of those spaces, then the next best option would be a tree nest box. There are two main types of barn owl nest box. So we have this, which is an interior nest box. It's designed to be placed in interior spaces, such as farm sheds and hay barns. And then we also have this nest box, which is an exterior nest box, and these are designed to be put on trees. So both of these nest boxes have quite a few similarities. So firstly, they both have platforms. So these are vital to incorporate into the design of a barn owl nest box, because they allow juvenile barn owls to practice flapping before they're able to fly. Both of these nest boxes also have a lip along the platforms. So again, this allows barn owl chicks to perch on the side of the nest box platform so that they don't fall off accidentally. Then, as well as that, both nest boxes also have a minimum depth from the entrance hole to the floor of the nest box. So the minimum depth required is 45 centimeters for an interior nest box, and for the exterior nest boxes, it's slightly more than that. So this minimum depth is required because barn owl chicks are very mobile at quite an early age. So having this depth prevents the chicks from coming out of the nest box at a too early stage before they're able to fly. Both of these nest boxes are based on the Barn Owl Trust designs. For the exterior barn owl nest boxes, these are made out of 12mm marine plywood. You can use another exterior grade plywood as well if you wish. So these nest boxes, we coat them in a wood preservative just to prolong the life of the plywood. And they're also covered in roofing felt just to give them that added protection. With the interior nest boxes, they're not going to be exposed to any weather conditions. So these can be made of an interior grade plywood, and the plywood that we use is 9mm thick. So for the exterior nest boxes, we also incorporate an inspection hatch. So this allows licensed bird ringers to easily take out the chicks for ringing and for monitoring, and it also allows easy access for cleaning out the nest box. For interior nest boxes, there is no inspection hatch, but the lid can easily be removed so that a licensed ringer can easily access the chicks, and the nest box can easily be cleaned out if it ever needs to be. So this is the plan for an interior nest box. So we have the back panel, and we also have the front panel. So within the front panel, we also have marked out the entrance hole. So then we also have the two sides, and you also have the lid, the floor, and the platform. So all that you need to mark this out is a pencil, a measuring tape, and a straight edge. So for this nest box, there is quite a lot of leftover plywood. So this would be perfect for making interior bat boxes or interior nest boxes such as a house sparrow box, which you could also put up in a barn. Next job is to cut it out. So you can either use a hand saw, or if you have one, you can even use a circular saw. Now we've cut out all of the sections of the interior nest box. For the entrance hole of the nest box, I had to use a jigsaw to cut this out. For the interior of the nest boxes, we're going to use 2x1 batten. This is one which has already been fitted to the side of the nest box. So the batten runs from the bottom to the top, and there are also 2 cross battens. Now we just need to secure battens to the other side, and also with the front and the back panels, we secure 2 battens, one on the top and one on the bottom. The batten on the side of the nest box is 15.5 centimeters down from the top. Next, we're going to screw the back panel and the front panel onto the sides. When you're screwing the back panel and the front panel onto the side panels, just make sure that you are screwing the screws into the batten rather than just the plywood. Now that the sides of the nest box and the front and back of the nest box are all put together, we now just need to secure these battens to the top front, the top back, and the bottom of the nest box as well, for both the front panel and the back panel. Now the nest box is nearly complete. All that we need to do now is to add the platform and put a top on it. So the platform is made from the wooden battens and also the plywood sheet. So the plywood is simply screwed onto the wooden battens. So we secure the platform onto the nest box using 50mm screws on the sides and also 2 30mm screws. The 50mm screws are fixed into the side battens on the interior of the nest box. Last thing to do is to secure battens onto the inside of the roof. Now the nest box is complete, so all that's left to do is to install it in a suitable interior space, such as a barn. It'll provide a nice secure place for a pair of barn owls to nest. There are hundreds of sites like this around the country. Old, isolated, really quiet old farmyards with old sheds and barns, and these sites are really perfect for barn owls and putting up nest boxes. It's nice and high, so within this barn you can locate the box at least 3 meters up, which is the minimum that we recommend for boxes. It's nice and open. There are plenty of flight paths that the barn owls can fly into. So without nest boxes in a barn like this, there would be no option for barn owls to nest. So barn owls require a cavity to nest within. So as you can see, there's no other cavities within this barn if it were not for nest boxes. So nest boxes here really provide the only option for nesting. During night time, it's very likely that barn owls fly into the shed for resting. When it's raining, barn owls might come in here to shelter. So it's very likely that barn owls already use this space for those purposes. So therefore, it's very likely that a barn owl in this area is going to find these nest boxes. Every barn is different, so in this case we have wooden rafters, which makes our job nice and easy. However, if you have a fully galvanized metal shed, then you might have to adapt the methods somewhat. In that case, galvanized steel band can come in very useful because you can screw straight into the box and straight into your galvanized steel sheeting. So within this nest box, we're going to screw in 3 screws in the bottom of the box so that we can screw onto the horizontal rafter, and we're going to screw into the side of the box as well so that we can screw into the vertical rafter. And as well as that, you can also add additional support on the left hand side by using galvanized steel band, and you can screw this into the galvanized steel sheeting on the shed. So now it's time to put up the nest box. It's very important that when you're putting up your own nest box that you do so safely. So it's always going to be a 2-person job. So in this case, I'm going to put a ratchet strap around the nest box, and then once that's in place, I'm going to attach the rope to it using a high-strength carabiner. And then up on the top rafter, I'm going to place this pulley, and then my helper will be able to raise up the nest box safely, and I can secure it into place. So this is how we're putting up this nest box, but you can use whatever you have available to you, just as long as you do so safely. Okay, and hold it. Okay, so I'll just secure the side screw first. So now the box is loosely held in place. The next job is to secure the lower screws. Yeah, the box is very firmly in position. So the last job is just to secure the galley band into the steel sheeting. Finally, we can just tighten it up by screwing in this side screw. Now that's very firmly secured. So now it's okay to remove the pulley. So the final job is to put on the lid. So that's it. The nest box is in place. It's in a really nice barn, in a really nice area. Some very nice habitat in this area. So fingers crossed, next year we'll have a pair of barn owls nesting in the new nest box. This is the design plan for an exterior nest box. So this sheet is 12mm thick marine plywood, and it's a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. So you can see here, this is the front panel, and within the front panel we have the entrance hole, and we also have the inspection hatch. Then this is the back panel. Here we have the two sides. Over here we have the floor and the roof, and here we have the platform. So for this sheet of plywood, there's also a small bit of leftover marine plywood. So these can be used for making exterior nest boxes, such as blue tit boxes or great tit boxes or starling boxes. So now that you have your sheet of plywood drawn out, the next job is to start cutting. So that's the platform cut out. So now just need to follow the same process for the other sections. So now we've cut out all of the sections of the exterior nest box. The next job is to fit the battens to the back panel and to the front panel. So the battens that we use are a 2x1 rough cut treated wooden batten. So with this, the back panel, we have already fitted the battens. So you can see there are two battens on the side, there's a batten on the bottom, and there's a batten on the top. So now we're just going to fit the wooden battens to the front panel. For securing the battens onto the front panel of the nest box, we're going to use 30mm screws. So we use stainless steel screws just to prolong the life of the nest box. So the battens go right up to the top of the front panel, and there is a slight overlap of the plywood on the bottom of the panel. So the two side battens are now fixed. So next is to put the lower batten. And finally, now time to fit the top batten. The final job with the front panel is to put in the inspection hatch. So the interior supports for the inspection hatch are already in place. And the inspection hatch itself is secured with a latch on the top and two supports on the bottom. The battens are now in place on the front panel and the back panel. So the next job is to secure these sides. Because this nest box is going to be exposed to the elements, we're going to have to seal the edges. So we just used an all-purpose weather sealant. Now that we have the sealant applied and the side screws pre-screwed, we just have to screw it together. Before we fit the front panel, again, we're just going to apply some sealant along the edge. The front panel of exterior barn owl nest boxes are inset at the top. So they're inset approximately 10 centimeters, and they are flush with the side at the bottom. So this is to allow rain to drain off a lot easier. So once they're in line, we can screw the front panel into place. For screwing the side panels onto the nest box, we use 40mm stainless steel screws. Now all the screws are in place, so all we need to do is line it up with the front and back panel and screw it into place. Next job is to fit the roof. So we secure the roof in place using 50mm stainless steel screws. 3 along the front and 3 along the back is enough. Again, you just have to make sure that you're screwing the screws into the battens on the top of the front panel and the top of the back panel. The nest box is really beginning to take shape now, and it actually looks like a barn owl nest box. The next job is to fit a wooden batten to the back of the box. So this is going to enable us to secure the nest box into a tree. After that, we're going to fit the floor, and finally we're going to fit the platform. Here we have the finished product. So the barn owl nest box is all completed. I fitted the batten at the back of the nest box and also the platform at the front with the battens for the chicks to cling onto. Then also fitted some roofing felt onto the top of the nest box. And finally, I coated it in a wood preservative. Now this box is ready to be put up in a tree, so hopefully it will provide a new home for some barn owls. When you're looking for a suitable tree for an exterior barn owl nest box, there are a number of things that you want to look for. So firstly, the tree must be facing open land. So somewhere where barn owls will be foraging, going back and forth. Secondly, you want the tree to be nice and clean. It has to have a clean trunk so that when you put the nest box onto the tree, it's going to be visible from a distance. You also want to select a tree which is large enough to actually take the weight of the nest box. So barn owl tree nest boxes are quite heavy, so it has to be a large, sturdy tree. The ideal tree would be an oak tree or Scots pine or even a beech tree, ash trees as well. Also, it's very important that you locate the nest box at least 4 meters off the ground. So generally we put tree nest boxes around 4 to 5 meters high in the tree. So this is the tree that we have selected here. So it's a nice oak tree. It's very mature, so it's going to be able to take the weight of the nest box. It has a nice clean trunk, and where we will locate the box on the tree is facing out into open land. And importantly as well, it's nice farmland. It's rough grass, and there's very nice mature hedgerows in the area as well. And we know barn owls are in the area. Another important consideration when you are selecting a tree is that you must make sure that if you are putting up the nest box in winter, that come summer that the nest box won't be completely concealed in foliage. This is the wooden batten that we're going to use to fix the nest box to the tree. So first things first is to pre-drill this wooden batten. Once we have pre-drilled the batten, we can use these coach screws, 130mm coach screws, and these will go through the batten and be screwed into the tree. So first I pre-drilled through the batten, so this hole will just be large enough to allow the screw to go through it without splitting the wood. And then as well, we want the coach screw head to be flush with the wooden batten, so we don't want this protruding out. So in order to do that, we have to make a slightly larger hole just on the surface of the batten. This is all ready now to install on the tree. So this is going to sit against the trunk of the tree, and the back support of the nest box is going to slide onto here, and it's going to support the whole weight of the nest box. When you're installing this on the tree, it's important to also pre-drill holes in the trunk of the tree itself, because otherwise the coach screws are likely to shear off. Installing a tree nest box is always a two-person job. They're very heavy, so there are a few precautions that you must take when you're installing the nest box. So firstly, we use rope to lift up the nest box. So one person will be in the tree and you'll have a helper on the ground pulling the rope, taking the weight of the nest box while you install it in the tree. It's also a good idea to attach the rope to the nest box using ratchet straps. It just makes life a lot easier when you're attaching the rope to the nest box. It's also very important that you wear a helmet and you wear gloves and all the necessary safety equipment. Myself, I'm going to go an extra step and I'm going to use a harness. So I will be tied into the tree, so I'll be nice and secure. Now I'm just going to install the pulley system with which we'll raise up the nest box. So first of all, I'm just going to put this strap over. Onto that strap, I'm going to clip a heavy-duty carabiner with a pulley. So this will just make it a lot easier to raise up the nest box. It's also important that the branch onto which you clip the carabiner and pulley system, it must be located straight above where you're going to put the nest box, because otherwise you're just going to be pulling against the weight of the box and it will make it a lot more difficult to install the box. Just for added security and safety, I'm going to install a climbing line that I can be tied into, so I'll be nice and secure. So that's the batten nice and secure onto the tree. Next, I want to strap the box with ratchet straps. And this will just enable us to nice and easily lift the box up into position. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to secure your rope onto the batten, as otherwise once the box is up in the tree, the rope will be snagged between the two battens. So it's a good idea to ratchet strap across the box. So you want to make sure the ratchet straps are tight enough that they don't slip off. An easy way of attaching the ratchet straps to the rope is just to use a carabiner. It's always a good idea just to test it, so lift it up. That's nice and secure. So the box is ready to be lifted into place. Okay, ready? Okay, lift. Lift. Hold it. Okay, down. Small bit. Okay. Next, what I need to do is I need to screw the batten on the box onto the batten on the tree. So I'm just going to use two 75mm screws on each side of the box, and that will secure the box completely to the tree. So that is the nest box nice and secure now. The last thing I will do is put a piece of wood behind the box because it's leaning quite far forward, so just to straighten it up nicely. There's a very open view from the nest box. It's facing out onto nice habitat. It's the ideal spot for a barn owl nest box.
Now all the hard work is done, you've built the nest box, you've put it up, and now it's just simply a matter of playing the waiting game and hoping that barn owls find the nest box and occupy it. It's really important to remember not to interfere with the nest box once it's in place. Barn owls can be very sensitive to disturbance at certain times of the year, so it's best to leave the nest box well enough alone. You can watch it from a safe distance to monitor it to see if there's any signs of birds using it or coming and going, but resist the urge to go near the nest box, because if you visit at the wrong time of year when barn owls are breeding, that can have a detrimental effect on them. Also, you should expect that other species may find and may use the nest box, not just barn owls. And some of the nest boxes we've put up, species like stock dove, like jackdaw, like kestrel, have taken up residence in the box. So if they do, the exact same principles apply. Leave them well enough alone and leave them to breed without disturbance. And finally, best of luck. There's no better feeling than having barn owls move into a nest box that you've built and put up yourself, so we hope you get to experience that.